Jasmine Washington stood frozen as the gate agent scanned her first-class ticket, then deliberately assigned her to economy while waving white executives forward. As humiliation washed over her, she made one call. 20 minutes later, sirens approached the terminal. Nobody was flying today. Before we dive into this incredible story of courage and justice, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed discrimination, and subscribe to join our community fighting for equality. Now, buckle up for a journey that will change how you see corporate America forever. The morning had begun like any other for Jasmine Washington, CEO of Phoenix Digital Solutions. At 38, she had built her company from a small startup to a tech powerhouse valued at $800 million. Today could push that valuation to $1 billion. All she needed was to make it to San Francisco for the acquisition meeting that would change everything. Jasmine checked her reflection in her hotel bathroom mirror. The tailored navy suit hugged her curves perfectly, projecting the confidence and authority she'd worked so hard to earn. Her natural hair was styled in a sophisticated updo, and her minimal makeup enhanced her features without being distracting. Every detail mattered in the world she navigated. "You've got this," she told herself, a ritual she'd maintained since her days growing up in South Baltimore. Life hadn't handed Jasmine anything. Her mother had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table after her father died when she was 12. While her classmates focused on homework and social lives, Jasmine juggled school with part-time jobs. She'd worked as a grocery cashier, fast food server, and overnight convenience store clerk simultaneously to save for college. When she got into Howard University with a partial scholarship, she still had to work throughout her education. Sleep became a luxury as she maintained a 3.9 GPA while working 30 hours weekly. Her roommate Andrea Foster had marveled at her determination. "Girl, when do you even sleep?" Andrea would ask, watching Jasmine return from a late shift to immediately open her textbooks. "I'll sleep when I'm rich," Jasmine would reply with a tired smile. After graduation, the climb had continued. Despite her stellar credentials, she'd started in entry-level positions where white colleagues with inferior qualifications began several rungs higher. She'd watched them advance faster, receive more mentorship, and get invited to the informal gatherings where real connections were made. But Jasmine had persisted. She'd worked twice as hard, been twice as prepared, and seized every opportunity that came her way. When she finally landed a VP position at a mid-sized tech company, she used that platform to launch Phoenix Digital. Now, rolling her Louis Vuitton carry-on through Atlanta International Airport for her connecting flight, Jasmine could feel the stares. Even in 2025, a black woman exuding success still drew attention, some admiring, some suspicious, some resentful. Her flight to San Francisco was scheduled to depart in 45 minutes. The acquisition meeting with Tech Global's executives would determine whether her AI-powered customer service platform would become the industry standard. Years of work had led to this moment. As she approached the gate, Jasmine noticed the white male executives being ushered through with deferential smiles. Bradley Wilson, the gate agent, a thin white man with thinning hair and perpetually pursed lips, barely looked at their boarding passes before waving them forward with a "Have a pleasant flight, sir." When Jasmine presented her first-class ticket, Wilson's demeanor changed instantly. His eyes narrowed as he scrutinized her ticket, then her face, as though comparing them for inconsistencies. "ID, please," he demanded, though he hadn't asked the previous passengers. Jasmine maintained her professional smile as she presented her driver's license. Years of similar interactions had taught her that displaying any irritation would only worsen the situation. Wilson examined her ID with exaggerated thoroughness, glancing between the card and her face multiple times. "There seems to be an issue with your seating assignment," he finally stated. "Is there a problem with my ticket?" Jasmine asked, keeping her voice measured. "First class is at capacity," Wilson replied without meeting her eyes. "We'll need to reassign you to economy. Middle seat, 23B. Jasmine's stomach tightened. She'd personally selected her first-class seat 2 months ago. There must be some mistake. I booked this seat well in advance. No mistake, ma'am. The system is showing first class is full. As the words left Wilson's mouth, a white couple approached the counter. Wilson scanned their tickets and smiled broadly. Enjoy your flight in first class, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. The couple proceeded past Jasmine toward the jetway, the wife giving her a curious glance. This wasn't the first time. Throughout her career, Jasmine had been mistaken for support staff at her own presentations. She'd been asked to fetch coffee during board meetings she was leading. She'd been followed by security in high-end stores where she was dropping thousands of dollars. Each incident had built upon the last, creating a reservoir of exhaustion and rage that she kept carefully contained. But today, with so much at stake, she couldn't afford this battle. This is unacceptable, Jasmine stated firmly. I paid for first class, my reservation confirms it, and I've just witnessed you allow other passengers into the supposedly full cabin. Wilson's face hardened. Ma'am, if you continue to be disruptive, I'll have to call security. The threat was clear, and familiar. For black people, especially black women, the escalation from minor disagreement to security threat happened with alarming speed. Jasmine weighed her options. She could accept the humiliation and make it to her meeting. She could escalate and risk missing her flight entirely. Neither option felt right. I need to make a call, she said, stepping away from the counter. Her hands trembled slightly as she dialed Terrell Jenkins, her COO and closest ally since founding Phoenix Digital. Terrell, we have a situation, she said, her voice low and controlled despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. As she explained what was happening, memories flooded back, the college professor who'd accused her of plagiarism because her paper was too well written. The landlord who'd refused to show her an apartment until she'd provided bank statements proving she could afford it, the countless times she'd been introduced as articulate with tones of surprise. Just let it go, Jasmine, Terrell advised after hearing her out. The meeting with Tech Global is too important. We can file a complaint afterward. Jasmine closed her eyes. Terrell wasn't wrong about the stakes. But something inside her had reached its breaking point. No, she said firmly. Not this time. Not anymore. She ended the call and approached the customer service desk adjacent to the gate. I need to speak with Kevin Reynolds, the regional manager, she stated to the agent. The young woman looked surprised. Mr. Reynolds is very busy. Perhaps I can help you. Mr. Reynolds knows who I am, Jasmine replied. This wasn't entirely true, but in her experience, confidence often created its own reality. 5 minutes later, Kevin Reynolds appeared, a middle-aged white man with an artificial smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Washington? How can I help you today? Jasmine explained the situation succinctly, her CEO voice in full effect. Reynolds nodded sympathetically throughout, but his response was predictable. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Wilson is one of our most experienced agents. Perhaps the system showed an error that's since been corrected. Let me check if we can get you back into first class. The misunderstanding, Jasmine replied coolly, is that your agent believed he could discriminate against me without consequences. I've been recording our interactions. She held up her phone. And I've documented other passengers being allowed into first class after I was told it was full. Reynolds' smile faltered. That's a serious accusation. Yes, it is. And one easily proven. The manager's demeanor shifted instantly. Ms. Washington, we value your business. Let me fix this immediately. We'll not only restore your first-class seat but offer compensation for the inconvenience. This isn't about compensation, Jasmine replied. This is about accountability. I want Bradley Wilson suspended pending investigation, and I want a public statement from the airline acknowledging this incident and detailing how you'll prevent similar discrimination in the future. Reynolds' face hardened. That won't be possible. We can resolve your seating situation, but personnel matters are internal, and we don't issue public statements about individual customer experiences. Then we have a problem, Jasmine replied, her voice steady. Because I've already contacted media connections and my company's legal team. Are you threatening this airline? Reynolds asked, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. I'm informing you of actions already in motion, Jasmine corrected. What happens next is your choice. Reynolds' jaw tightened. If you continue this disruptive behavior, I'll have security escort you from the terminal. As if on cue, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text from Terrell, team mobilized. Hold your ground. She looked Reynolds directly in the eyes. Do what you need to do. But understand what's coming. You don't want to do this, Jasmine told Reynolds, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Not today. Not with me. Reynolds' face flushed with anger. Ms. Washington, perhaps you don't understand how airlines operate. We have full discretion over seating assignments, and security will remove disruptive passengers. Jasmine smiled, though there was no warmth in it. And perhaps you don't understand who you're dealing with. Her mind flashed back to the countless microaggressions she'd endured throughout her career. The time she'd arrived early to present at a tech conference, and the organizer had directed her to the janitorial closet, assuming she was there to clean. The board meeting where she'd been interrupted 27 times, she'd counted, while her white male colleagues spoke unimpeded. The investor who'd asked if she was the diversity hire after she'd delivered a flawless pitch. Each incident had been a stone in her pocket. Small individually, but collectively, they weighed her down, forced her to work harder just to move at the same pace as her white colleagues. Today, she was emptying her pockets. Terrell, she spoke into her phone, activate Protocol Mamba. Protocol Mamba was something they developed after a similar incident 2 years ago. It was named for the late Kobe Bryant's ruthless competitiveness and laser focus when facing obstacles. It meant mobilizing every resource at Phoenix Digital's disposal, legal, media, social, financial. It meant war. Already on it, Terrell replied. Legal team is drafting cease and desist letters. PR has contacted 3 major networks. Alexandra is monitoring social channels. And Jasmine, he paused, Wesley Parker just confirmed he received your message. Wesley Parker was a major investor in the airline and someone Jasmine had worked with years ago when his own company was on the brink of collapse. She'd stepped in as a consultant and saved his business, earning his lasting respect and gratitude. Reynolds' phone rang. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion as he listened to the caller. Yes, sir. I understand. Yes, she's right here. Of course. He lowered the phone. It seems our CEO would like to speak with you directly. Before Jasmine could take the phone, a commotion near the gate caught everyone's attention. A young black woman with a professional camera was live streaming, surrounded by curious passengers. I'm here at Gate C23 where Phoenix Digital CEO Jasmine Washington is being denied her purchased first-class seat, the woman was saying. Maya Turner reporting live for my 3 million followers. Maya Turner was a well-known social media influencer who focused on social justice issues. Her presence was a stroke of luck that Jasmine hadn't counted on. As Maya approached, other passengers began sharing their own stories. They did the same thing to me last month, said an older black man in a business suit. Claimed my reservation had been lost even though I had confirmation. I've flown this airline for years, added a middle-aged black woman. They always randomly select me for additional screening. Reynolds' face drained of color as he watched the situation spiraling beyond his control. He stepped away to make another call, his movements jerky with panic. Jasmine's phone rang again. It was Alexandra Chen, Phoenix Digital's PR director. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox Business are all requesting statements, Alexandra reported. The hashtag Justice for Jasmine is trending, and we've got support flowing in from other black executives and business leaders. How do you want to play this? Maximum pressure, Jasmine replied. Release the statement we prepared for situations like this. Emphasize that this is about systemic discrimination, not just my experience. As she ended the call, Jasmine noticed airport security approaching. Her heart rate increased, but she kept her expression neutral. She knew how quickly these situations could escalate for black people. The security officer, a tall black man with "Hayes" on his nameplate, assessed the scene. With cameras rolling and social media already documenting everything, he made a calculated decision. "Mr. Reynolds," Officer Hayes said, "I was told there's a disruptive passenger, but what I'm seeing is a customer dispute. Unless there's a safety concern, this appears to be a customer service issue." Reynolds sputtered, "She's disrupting our boarding process. By requesting the seat she paid for." Officer Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Sir, with all due respect, that's a matter for your airline to resolve." Jasmine felt a rush of gratitude for Hayes' professionalism, knowing how differently this could have gone with another officer. Reynolds' phone rang again. This time, his face went completely white as he listened. "Yes, Mr. Parker." "Right away, Mr. Parker." Wesley Parker's influence was already taking effect. The airline's social media accounts were flooding with comments. #Justice for Jasmine had spread beyond Maya Turner's followers to the broader public. The story was resonating because it reflected experiences so many had endured but few had the platform to challenge. An announcement came over the PA system: "Attention passengers for Flight 1382 to San Francisco. Boarding is temporarily suspended due to technical issues. We apologize for the inconvenience and will provide updates as they become available." Jasmine caught Reynolds' eye. They both knew there were no technical issues. This was damage control. Her phone buzzed with a text from Terrell: "Tech Global execs are watching this unfold. They're impressed with how you're handling it. Said they'll wait for you, no matter what." For the first time since the confrontation began, Jasmine allowed herself a small smile. She hadn't sacrificed the acquisition. If anything, she'd demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership and integrity that made Phoenix Digital valuable. Reynolds approached, his earlier arrogance replaced with thinly veiled panic. "Ms. Washington, Diana Sullivan, our Vice President of Operations, is on her way to personally address your concerns. In the meantime, we'd like to offer you access to our premium lounge." "I'll wait right here," Jasmine replied, "where everyone can see exactly how your airline treats its black first-class passengers." Word spread through the terminal like wildfire. Passengers gathered, phones raised, capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. The story jumped from Maya Turner's livestream to mainstream news alerts in less than 30 minutes. "We're getting reports of a major confrontation at Atlanta International Airport," the CNN anchor announced. Tech CEO Jasmine Washington is alleging racial discrimination by national airlines after being removed from her first-class seat while white passengers were allowed to board. Maya Turner had transformed from casual observer to on-the-ground reporter, interviewing other travelers about their experiences with the airline. "They always randomly select me for additional screening," a black businessman told her. 15 flights this year, 15 random selections. "I was told my natural hair violated some dress code for first class," a young black woman added. "When I asked to see this policy in writing, they threatened to remove me from the flight." Each story validated Jasmine's stand, turning her individual experience into a movement. Alexandra Chen called again. "Jasmine, this is exploding beyond anything we could have orchestrated. The airline stock has dropped 3% in the last hour. Their PR team is in full crisis mode." "Good," Jasmine replied. "Pressure makes diamonds." Across the terminal, a commotion signaled the arrival of Diana Sullivan, the airline's Vice President of Operations. Flanked by assistants and security, she moved with the practiced urgency of an executive managing a crisis. Sullivan was everything Jasmine had expected: mid-50s, white, blonde, wearing an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than what many of her employees made in a month. Her smile was professional but tight as she approached. "Ms. Washington, I'm Diana Sullivan. I want to personally apologize for any misunderstanding that may have occurred today." "There was no misunderstanding," Jasmine replied evenly. "Your agent deliberately discriminated against me, then lied about first class being full before immediately seating white passengers there." Sullivan's smile didn't waver. "If that's what happened, it's completely unacceptable. Why don't we discuss this somewhere more private? Our Platinum Lounge offers." "No," Jasmine interrupted. "This conversation happens right here. Transparency is non-negotiable." Sullivan's eye twitched slightly, the only crack in her polished veneer. "Very well. What can we do to make this right for you today?" "It's not about making it right for me," Jasmine said, aware of the growing crowd and cameras capturing every word. "It's about ensuring it doesn't happen to anyone else. Starting with the immediate suspension of Bradley Wilson pending a full investigation." Sullivan hesitated. "Personnel matters are complex. We can certainly review." "I have video evidence," Jasmine interrupted. "And witnesses." She gestured to the gathered crowd, many of whom nodded in confirmation. "Your choice is simple, address this transparently or let the courts and public opinion decide." As if on cue, Officer Hayes returned with his supervisor. "Ma'am," he addressed Sullivan, "we've received multiple reports about this incident, including video evidence. We're prepared to take statements if Ms. Washington wishes to file a formal complaint." Sullivan's composure faltered momentarily. "That won't be necessary, officer. We're resolving this matter." "Are you?" Jasmine questioned. "Because resolution requires accountability, not just platitudes." Her phone buzzed with an incoming video call. It was Wesley Parker. "Jasmine, I've spoken with the board," Wesley said without preamble. "They've authorized me to resolve this situation by any means necessary. The CEO is on his way." Jasmine put the call on speaker, letting Sullivan hear every word. "Wesley, thank you. I appreciate your intervention, but this isn't about special treatment for me. It's about addressing the systemic issues that allowed this to happen in the first place." "I understand," Wesley replied. "And the board does too. This isn't the first complaint we've received, but it might be the last. We're prepared to make significant changes, starting today." Sullivan's face had gone pale. The power dynamic had shifted completely. An airline employee rushed up to Sullivan, whispering urgently in her ear. Sullivan's eyes widened. "Ms. Washington," she said, her voice noticeably less confident, "we've just received word that the Department of Transportation is requesting details about this incident. Additionally, 3 civil rights organizations have issued statements in your support." The terminal announcement system crackled to life, "Attention all passengers. Due to operational concerns, all national airlines flights are temporarily grounded. We apologize for the inconvenience and will provide updates as they become available." The crowd gasped collectively. Grounding all flights was an extraordinary measure, one that would cost the airline millions. Jasmine turned to Maya, whose live stream had now reached over 1 million viewers. "This isn't just about one seat on one flight," she said directly to the camera. "This is about dignity. About respect. About holding institutions accountable when they fail to live up to their promises of equality." The crowd erupted in applause. Strangers approached Jasmine, sharing their own stories, thanking her for taking a stand. What had begun as a personal indignity had transformed into a watershed moment. Sullivan pulled Jasmine aside, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine concern. "Ms. Washington, you've made your point. What will it take to resolve this today? Name your price." Jasmine shook her head. "This was never about money. This is about justice. And justice isn't negotiable." As Sullivan struggled to formulate a response, security cleared a path through the crowd. A distinguished man in his 60s approached, flanked by airline executives. Benjamin Morris, the airline CEO, had arrived. The tension in the air was palpable as Benjamin Morris approached. His silver hair and tailored suit projected authority, but the tightness around his eyes revealed his stress. National airline stock was continuing to plummet, and the PR disaster was growing by the minute. "Ms. Washington," Morris extended his hand, "I'm Benjamin Morris. Let's resolve this situation." Jasmine assessed him coolly before accepting the handshake. "Mr. Morris. I'm surprised it took a national scandal to warrant your attention." Morris forced a smile. "Perhaps we should speak somewhere more private." "No," Jasmine replied firmly. "Transparency is non-negotiable." Morris glanced at the cameras, then nodded reluctantly. "Very well. I understand there was an unfortunate misunderstanding with your seating assignment." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Jasmine corrected. "It was discrimination. Your gate agent deliberately denied me the first-class seat I purchased, then immediately seated white passengers there while claiming it was, at capacity." "That's a serious accusation," Morris began. "It's not an accusation. It's a fact documented on video and witnessed by dozens." Jasmine gestured to the crowd. "And based on the stories I've heard today, it's part of a pattern." Sullivan interjected, "We take all customer concerns seriously." "Do you really believe that?" Jasmine interrupted. "Do you think the black doctor who was asked to prove her credentials before being allowed to help a fellow passenger would agree? Or the black executive who was asked to move to economy to accommodate a white couple who wanted to sit together?" The crowd murmured in agreement. Many had experienced similar treatment. "What exactly are you looking for, Ms. Washington?" Morris asked, his voice tight. "Accountability," Jasmine replied without hesitation. "Starting with the suspension of Bradley Wilson pending a full investigation. A public acknowledgement of this incident and others like it. And concrete steps to address the systemic bias in your company culture." Morris exchanged glances with Sullivan. "Personnel matters are internal." "Not anymore," Jasmine cut in. "Not when they affect your customers. Not when they reveal systemic failures." Her phone rang. It was Kenneth Barnes, Phoenix Digital's chief legal counsel. "Kenneth, perfect timing," Jasmine said, putting the call on speaker. "I'm here with Benjamin Morris and Diana Sullivan from National Airlines. Would you share what you found?" "Of course," Kenneth's voice was clear and professional. "We've identified 73 discrimination complaints against National Airlines in the past 18 months. 42 specifically mention gate agents revoking or changing premium seating for passengers of color while accommodating white passengers." Morris's face tightened. "Those complaints represent a fraction of our—" "I'm not finished," Kenneth continued. "We've also discovered 3 pending class action lawsuits that haven't yet been made public. And perhaps most concerning, internal communications suggesting a pattern of what your company calls customer demographic management." Sullivan visibly paled. "Thank you, Kenneth," Jasmine said before ending the call. She fixed Morris with a steady gaze. "Now, shall we discuss how we're going to resolve this?" Morris's professional demeanor slipped, revealing anger beneath. "You're holding my airline hostage over a seating dispute." "No, I'm holding your airline accountable for systematic discrimination," Jasmine corrected. "There's a difference." The confrontation had reached a critical point. The entire terminal seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Morris's next move. "This is a pivotal moment in our story. What would you do if you were in Jasmine's position? Comment number 1 if you believe she should accept a private settlement to resolve the situation quickly. Comment number 2 if you think she should push for public accountability regardless of cost. Comment number 3 if you would have handled the situation differently from the beginning. If you're standing with Jasmine in her fight against discrimination, hit that like button right now. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This channel is dedicated to sharing stories of courage and standing up against injustice. Now, what do you think happens next? Will the airline CEO cave to public pressure, or will he try to intimidate Jasmine into backing down? Let's find out. Mr. Morris, Jasmine said, her voice carrying across the now silent terminal, your company has a choice to make today. You can acknowledge the problem and commit to meaningful change, or you can become the face of corporate America's failure to address racial bias. Either way, I'm not backing down. Morris studied her for a long moment, weighing his options. The businessman in him was calculating costs, stock devaluation, lawsuit settlements, lost customers, regulatory investigations. The public figure in him was considering reputation damage. What specifically would satisfy you, he finally asked. 4 things, Jasmine replied without hesitation. 1. Immediate suspension of Bradley Wilson. 2. A public acknowledgement of this incident and a commitment to addressing systemic bias. 3. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for all customer-facing staff. 4. A diversity audit of your hiring, promotion, and customer service practices conducted by an independent third party. Morris consulted quietly with Sullivan and their legal counsel. The discussion was tense, with Sullivan shaking her head repeatedly while the lawyer whispered urgently. Finally, Morris turned back to Jasmine. We can suspend Wilson pending investigation. We can issue a public statement acknowledging the incident. We can implement additional training. But a third-party audit is off the table. Then we don't have a deal, Jasmine replied calmly. The audit is non-negotiable because without it, there's no accountability for the other promises. Morris's jaw tightened. Ms. Washington, be reasonable. You've made your point. This isn't about making a point, Jasmine countered. It's about creating lasting change. Without accountability, your promises are just PR. As they reached this impasse, Maya Turner approached with her camera. Mr. Morris, your company's stock has dropped 12% since this incident began trending. Competitors are offering special rates to your stranded passengers. What's your response to allegations that National Airlines systematically discriminates against passengers of color? The cameras turned to Morris, capturing his deer-in-headlights expression. In that moment, Jasmine knew she had won. News vans lined the terminal entrance, their satellite dishes extending skyward like mechanical flowers reaching for the sun. Inside, the crowd had grown from dozens to hundreds as passengers from other flights joined to witness the confrontation. Benjamin Morris was sweating visibly now. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with calls from board members, investors, and media outlets. What had begun as a customer service issue had transformed into a full-blown crisis threatening the airline's very existence. Ms. Washington, Morris tried again, his voice lower, almost pleading, perhaps we could discuss a more substantial compensation package. One that reflects the seriousness with which we take your concerns. Jasmine shook her head. This was never about money, Mr. Morris. This is about dignity and respect. Things your airline has repeatedly denied to passengers of color. Sullivan stepped forward. We understand your frustration, but consider how this affects your own reputation. Your company is missing an important acquisition meeting. Is this really worth jeopardizing Phoenix Digital's future? It was a calculated attempt to shift pressure back to Jasmine, appealing to her business instincts. For a brief moment, doubt flickered across her face. The Tech Global acquisition was crucial for Phoenix Digital's growth strategy. Then her phone buzzed with a text from Terrell, Tech Global CEO just called. They're watching the live stream and are 100% behind your stand. Meeting rescheduled at your convenience. They want to partner with a leader of integrity. Jasmine smiled, holding up her phone for Sullivan to see. My potential partners appreciate integrity. Do yours? Sullivan's face flushed. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted near the gate. Bradley Wilson was arguing loudly with another airline employee. This is ridiculous. Wilson's voice carried across the terminal. I followed protocol. This is her fault. He gestured angrily toward Jasmine. The crowd's reaction was immediate and hostile. Boos and jeers filled the air. Several passengers began shouting about their own experiences with Wilson. "You did the same thing to my mother last month. You made my brother sit in the back while his white colleagues went to first class. You told me my ticket must be a mistake when I tried to board first class." Morris paled as he witnessed the public turning against his employee. Wilson's outburst had inadvertently confirmed everything Jasmine had alleged. "Mr. Wilson," Morris called sharply. "Report to HR immediately." But the damage was done. Wilson's outburst had shattered any pretense that this was an isolated incident or misunderstanding. Maya Turner's live stream captured it all, her commentary providing context. "We're witnessing in real time how institutions respond when their discriminatory practices are exposed. National Airlines is attempting to frame this as one employee's actions rather than addressing their systemic issues." Morris turned to Jasmine, his corporate mask cracking. "You're destroying my company over one seat." "No," Jasmine replied calmly. "Your company's practices are destroying it. I'm simply shining a light." Her phone rang again. It was Terrell. "Jasmine, you need to see this. Check your email." She opened the message to find internal airline documents forwarded from an anonymous source. As she scanned the contents, her expression hardened. "Mr. Morris," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "would you care to explain your company's passenger placement protocol?" Morris's confusion seemed genuine. "Our what?" Jasmine held up her phone, displaying the document. "This internal memo instructing gate agents to optimize passenger experience by strategic demographic distribution. Specifically directing them to prioritize premier customers in premium cabins with a footnote defining premier customers as those who reflect the airline's brand identity." Sullivan stepped forward quickly. "That document is proprietary and confidential. How did you? How I obtained it is irrelevant," Jasmine cut her off. "Its existence is what matters. This isn't about Bradley Wilson. This is corporate policy disguised as customer service." Morris looked genuinely shocked as he read the document. "I've never seen this before." "Perhaps you should read your own company's policies," Jasmine suggested coldly. As if on cue, her phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. Jasmine Washington speaking. "Ms. Washington, this is Gabrielle Johnson. I used to work for National Airlines HR until 3 months ago. I was fired after raising concerns about their seating policies." Jasmine put the call on speaker. "Ms. Johnson, I'm here with Benjamin Morris and Diana Sullivan. Would you mind repeating what you just told me?" Sullivan stepped forward, alarmed. "This conversation should not." "I documented multiple complaints about discriminatory seating practices," Gabrielle continued. "When I brought them to Ms. Sullivan's attention, she told me to focus on customer satisfaction metrics instead. When I persisted, I was terminated for performance issues despite having received exemplary reviews for 5 years. The terminal had gone completely silent. Even the airport announcements seemed to have paused, as if the building itself was holding its breath." "That's a lie," Sullivan hissed. "She was terminated for violating confidentiality agreements." "By reporting discrimination?" Jasmine asked pointedly. Morris looked at Sullivan, the question clear in his eyes. Sullivan's silence was damning. "Mr. Morris," Jasmine said quietly, "your airline isn't being destroyed by one black woman standing up for herself. It's being destroyed by a culture that values some customers over others based on the color of their skin." Morris seemed to age before everyone's eyes. The realization that this crisis went far deeper than one incident was written across his face. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice defeated. "What I've wanted from the beginning," Jasmine replied. "Accountability. Transparency. Change." Her phone buzzed with another text from Terrell, "It's happening." National Airlines stock down 15%. Board calling emergency session. Wesley Parker says they're prepared to clean house. Jasmine showed the message to Morris. It seems your board is taking this seriously, even if you weren't. The airport announcement system crackled to life. Attention all National Airlines passengers. All flights remain grounded until further notice. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. Morris's phone rang. From his expression as he answered, Jasmine knew it was the board. The conversation was brief and one-sided, with Morris mostly listening and occasionally saying, "Yes, I understand." When he hung up, his demeanor had completely changed. "The board has authorized me to resolve this situation immediately, by any means necessary." It was a surrender. Jasmine nodded. "Then let's talk about real solutions." As Benjamin Morris led Jasmine, Diana Sullivan, and their respective teams to a private conference room, the atmosphere remained tense. The live streams had been temporarily paused, but the story continued to spread across social media, news outlets, and financial markets. Morris sat heavily in his chair, the weight of the crisis evident in his posture. "Ms. Washington, before we proceed, I want to understand exactly what we're dealing with. You've mentioned documents and testimonies. What else do you have?" Jasmine exchanged glances with Kenneth Barnes, who had arrived in person. "Mr. Morris, what we have is far more extensive than you might realize." Kenneth opened his laptop, turning it so everyone could see. "In the past hour, we've received over 300 direct messages from current and former National Airlines customers sharing experiences of discrimination. We've also heard from 42 current and former employees." Sullivan shifted uncomfortably. "Anecdotal complaints without context." "These aren't merely anecdotes," Kenneth interrupted. "They form a pattern that correlates directly with internal documents like this." He displayed a presentation titled Customer Experience Optimization that detailed the airline's seating algorithms and gate agent protocols. This presentation explicitly instructs staff to maintain cabin demographic balance and prioritize brand-aligned customers in premium spaces, Kenneth explained. While the language is carefully coded, the implementation is clear: segregate passengers by race. Morris looked genuinely shocked. "I've never seen this presentation." "It was created by your customer experience team last year," Kenneth replied. "And approved by Ms. Sullivan." All eyes turned to Sullivan, whose composed facade was cracking. These protocols were designed to maximize customer satisfaction scores, not to discriminate. By ensuring white passengers wouldn't have to sit next to too many people of color. Jasmine asked pointedly. Sullivan's silence was damning. Morris rubbed his temples. "Is there more?" "Much more," Kenneth confirmed. "We've received internal emails discussing passenger aesthetic alignment and brand image protection measures that explicitly mention race, though using coded language like traditional customer base and emerging demographics." As Kenneth continued presenting evidence, Jasmine received a text from Terrell. "Gabrielle Johnson is here." She brought documents. Moments later, there was a knock at the conference room door. Terrell entered with a black woman in her early 30s, professionally dressed and carrying a thick folder. "Mr. Morris, Ms. Sullivan," Jasmine said, "this is Gabrielle Johnson, former HR manager at National Airlines." Sullivan stood abruptly. She signed a non-disclosure agreement. Whatever she's about to say violates that agreement. "NDAs don't cover reporting illegal discrimination," Gabrielle replied calmly. "As your own legal department informed you last year when I raised these concerns internally." Gabrielle placed her folder on the table. "For 2 years, I documented every discrimination complaint that came through HR. I also tracked what happened to those complaints. Most were dismissed as subjective perceptions or misunderstandings. The few that gained traction mysteriously disappeared from our system." She opened the folder, revealing meticulously organized documentation. "I also have copies of the customer demographic management training materials that were provided to gate agents." Materials that Ms. Sullivan personally approved. Sullivan's face had gone completely white. Demographic, management. Morris repeated, looking increasingly ill. A practice of ensuring that first-class and business cabins maintained a certain aesthetic, Gabrielle explained. Gate agents were trained to find creative reasons to reassign passengers of color to economy, regardless of their purchased tickets. The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. Morris looked shattered. Was this happening across the entire airline? He asked quietly. Initially at 23 major hubs, Gabrielle confirmed. It expanded to 47 airports in the last 18 months. Jasmine watched Morris carefully. His shock seemed genuine, suggesting he might truly have been unaware of these practices. Sullivan, however, was another story. Her panic was evident in her rigid posture and darting eyes. Morris turned to Sullivan. "Did you authorize this?" Sullivan hesitated, then attempted to regain control. The practices in question were designed to optimize customer satisfaction metrics. Our data showed certain demographic configurations resulted in higher scores. So yes, Jasmine translated. You authorized systematic racial discrimination because white passengers gave better survey responses when they didn't have to sit next to black people. Put so bluntly, the practice's ugliness couldn't be disguised with corporate jargon. This is catastrophic, Morris admitted. He turned to Jasmine. Ms. Washington, what you've uncovered goes far beyond one incident. I owe you an apology, not just for today but for what appears to be years of discriminatory practices. Apologies are a starting point, Jasmine acknowledged, but meaningful change requires action. As they continued discussing, Terrell received a notification on his tablet. His eyes widened as he read it. Jasmine, he interrupted, National Airlines stock has dropped 18%. Trading has been temporarily halted. The news hit Morris like a physical blow. 18%. That's over $2 billion in market value. The cost of discrimination is high, Jasmine observed, though not nearly as high as what it's cost the people subjected to it. Sullivan's phone rang. After a brief conversation, she looked up, her face ashen. The board wants to speak with both of us immediately, she told Morris. They've called an emergency session. Before Morris could respond, Kenneth received a message on his laptop. Jasmine, Tech Global's CEO just issued a public statement supporting you. They've announced they're terminating their contract with National Airlines effective immediately, citing ethical concerns. The dominoes were falling faster than anyone could have anticipated. What had begun as one woman's stand against a single act of discrimination had uncovered a systemic issue that threatened to bring down one of America's largest airlines. Morris stood, his decision made. Ms. Washington, I need an hour with my board. When I return, I'd like to discuss not just resolution, but reformation. It seems my company needs both. As Morris and Sullivan left, Jasmine turned to her team. They'll try to contain this. We need to ensure that doesn't happen. Already on it, Terrell confirmed. Maya Turner is ready to break the story about the demographic management program. Major networks are standing by for your interview. Gabrielle looked uncertain. Will going public with all of this actually change anything? Jasmine considered the question. Throughout her career, she'd seen countless corporate apologies followed by minimal action. Promises made in crisis were often forgotten once the spotlight moved on. It will if we make sure it does, she finally answered. This moment isn't just about National Airlines. It's about every company that thinks discrimination is acceptable as long as it's discreet. It's about making the cost of bias too high to bear. As they waited for Morris to return, news alerts continued to flood in. Other airlines were issuing statements affirming their commitment to equal treatment. Civil rights organizations were announcing investigations. Government regulators were promising reviews. The world is watching, Terrell observed. Jasmine nodded. Then let's make sure they see real change. While Morris and Sullivan were meeting with their board, Jasmine's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Business leaders from across the country, particularly black executives who had faced similar discrimination, were reaching out to offer support. "Jasmine, it's Dr. Alicia Ramirez," came the voice of the president of the National Minority Business Association. "We're with you. I've organized an emergency virtual press conference with 37 Black, Hispanic, and Asian executives who've experienced similar treatment. We go live in 20 minutes. "Thank you, Alicia," Jasmine replied, genuinely moved. "This was never just about my seat." "We know," Dr. Ramirez assured her. "That's why we're standing with you. This is about every one of us who's been told to know our place, literally and figuratively." As she ended the call, Jasmine noticed a commotion spreading through the terminal. Passengers from other flights were gathering, many holding handmade signs. "I stand with Jasmine, dignity is non-negotiable, first-class citizens, economy treatment." What had begun as one woman's stand was becoming a movement. Maya Turner approached, her camera still rolling. "Jasmine, people are canceling their national airlines tickets in real time. Their customer service line is overwhelmed. Competing airlines are offering respect discounts to travelers who switch their bookings." The marketplace was rendering its verdict faster than any court could. Terrell touched Jasmine's arm, drawing her attention to his tablet. "Tech Global just sent this." The email was brief but powerful. "Ms. Washington. We've been following today's events with great interest. While we regret the postponement of our meeting, we are impressed by your principled stand. Phoenix Digital's commitment to integrity mirrors our own values. We are prepared to proceed with the acquisition as discussed, at your convenience. In fact, your leadership today has only increased our confidence in this partnership. Should you need additional time, we understand completely. Our team is willing to fly to your location rather than asking you to reschedule. With admiration. James Chen, CEO. Tech Global Solutions." Jasmine felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The acquisition, the reason she'd been traveling in the first place, wasn't in jeopardy. If anything, her stand had strengthened the partnership. As this news sank in, a security team escorted Bradley Wilson from the terminal. The gate agent who had started this chain of events looked shell-shocked as cameras followed his exit. A cheer erupted from the gathered crowd. It was a visible symbol that accountability was beginning, though Jasmine knew removing one employee wouldn't address the systemic issues. Her phone rang again. This time it was Wesley Parker. "Jasmine, the board meeting is intense. Morris looks like he's aged a decade in an hour. Sullivan is fighting for her job, blaming everything on misinterpreted directives. But the numbers don't lie, the company has lost nearly $3 billion in market value today alone. What's your sense of the board's direction?" Jasmine asked. "They're scared," Wesley replied frankly. "And they should be. The Department of Transportation just announced a formal investigation. 3 major corporate clients have suspended their business travel contracts pending review. This isn't just a PR crisis anymore, it's an existential threat." "Good," Jasmine said firmly. "Sometimes fear is the only thing that drives real change." As she ended the call, Jasmine noticed competitors taking advantage of National's crisis. Delta representatives were offering immediate booking assistance to stranded passengers. American Airlines had issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to equitable treatment for all passengers. The market forces were aligning with moral imperative in a way that rarely happened so visibly. Dr. Ramirez's virtual press conference began streaming on screens throughout the terminal. Business leaders from Fortune 500 companies shared story after story of similar discrimination, being downgraded from first class, having their credentials questioned, being followed by security in airport lounges. "What Ms. Washington experienced today is not an isolated incident," Dr. Ramirez stated. "It is part of a pattern that affects professionals of color across this country every day. The difference is that today, someone with the platform to demand accountability did so. The stories resonated deeply with the passengers gathered in the terminal. Many nodded in recognition or wiped away tears as they heard their own experiences reflected in these testimonies. Competing news networks had set up impromptu broadcasting stations, their anchors providing ongoing coverage. CNN's business correspondent reported that travel industry analysts were predicting lasting damage to National Airlines' brand unless they took unprecedented steps to address systemic discrimination. Maya Turner approached Jasmine again. People are asking about next steps. What happens after today? Jasmine considered the question carefully. This can't just be about one airline or one incident. This needs to spark industry-wide change in how companies approach diversity and inclusion, not as PR exercises, but as fundamental business practices. As she spoke, Jasmine noticed Morris returning to the terminal, alone. Sullivan was conspicuously absent. The airline CEO's body language had completely transformed. Gone was the confident executive, replaced by a man carrying the weight of a company in crisis. Ms. Washington, he said, approaching her with the cameras following, the board would like to speak with you directly. Jasmine nodded. I'm listening. Morris handed her his phone. They're waiting. Taking the phone, Jasmine heard the voice of Harriet Jenkins, the board chairwoman. Ms. Washington, this is Harriet Jenkins. I'm joined by the full National Airlines board. First, let me offer our sincere apologies for what you experienced today. It's clear from the evidence we've reviewed that this reflects systemic issues within our company culture. Apologies are a start, Jasmine replied, but they don't create change. We agree, Jenkins responded. Which is why we've taken immediate action. Diana Sullivan has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Bradley Wilson has been terminated. But we recognize these steps alone are insufficient. What else are you prepared to do? Jasmine asked directly. We'd like to propose a partnership, Jenkins said. Your company specializes in AI-driven customer service solutions. We need exactly that expertise to identify and eliminate bias in our systems. We're prepared to offer Phoenix Digital a substantial contract to help us reform our practices from the ground up. The offer was unexpected. Jasmine looked at Terrell, who raised his eyebrows, equally surprised. Ms. Jenkins, Jasmine replied carefully, I appreciate the offer, but I want to be clear, this can't be about optics. This would require a genuine commitment to transformation. We understand, Jenkins assured her. This isn't just about salvaging our reputation, though frankly, we need to do that too. It's about ensuring our company actually lives up to its stated values. The board is unanimous on this. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from James Chen, Tech Global's CEO. Ms. Jenkins, I need to take another call. Let me consider your proposal and get back to you. Switching calls, Jasmine was surprised by Chen's offer. We're sending our corporate jet to bring you to San Francisco whenever you're ready. Or, if you prefer, our team can come to Atlanta tomorrow. Either way, we'd like to finalize our acquisition as planned. Thank you, James, Jasmine replied, genuinely touched by the show of support. I'll let you know my decision shortly. As she ended the call, Jasmine turned to her team. National Airlines wants to hire Phoenix Digital to reform their practices. Tech Global is ready to proceed with the acquisition regardless of today's events. Thoughts? Terrell considered for a moment. The acquisition is our priority. But taking on National as a client could create real industry change. It's your call, but I think we can do both. Gabrielle Johnson, who had remained quiet during these developments, spoke up. If you're serious about working with National, I'd like to be involved. I know where all the problems are buried. Jasmine smiled at the former HR manager. I think that could be arranged. Turning back to Morris, who had been waiting anxiously, Jasmine made her decision. Tell your board we're interested, under specific conditions. First, we'll need complete access to all systems and data. Second, Gabrielle Johnson gets rehired with promotion and immunity. Third, we want a seat on the board to ensure recommendations are implemented. Morris blinked in surprise. A board seat? Yes, Jasmine confirmed. If National Airlines is serious about change, you need diverse perspectives at the highest level of decision-making. Morris hesitated, then nodded. I'll present these terms to the board immediately. As Morris stepped away, Maya approached one last time. Jasmine, you could have just taken your first-class seat and let this go. Why risk everything? Jasmine thought about all the times she'd swallowed her dignity, all the microaggressions she'd endured in silence to protect her career. She thought about her mother working 3 jobs, about the kids in South Baltimore who looked up to her as a role model. Because some things are worth standing for, she replied simply. And if not me, then who? If not now, then when? The words resonated beyond their conversation, captured on live stream and broadcast across the country. In standing for herself, Jasmine Washington had stood for countless others who had never had the platform or power to demand dignity. The alliance forming around her, executives, passengers, social media, regulatory agencies, represented something powerful, the recognition that injustice to one was injustice to all. The airport conference room had transformed into an impromptu corporate war room. On one side sat Jasmine, Terrell, Kenneth, and Gabrielle. On the other, Benjamin Morris and 3 board members who had flown in on private jets, including Chairwoman Harriet Jenkins. Legal teams flanked both parties. The stakes couldn't have been higher. National Airlines stock had been halted after falling 22%. The Department of Transportation investigation was accelerating. Competing airlines were poaching customers and talent. Every passing hour deepened the crisis. Let's be clear about our objectives, Jasmine began, her CEO voice in full effect. This isn't about extracting concessions or compensation. This is about creating meaningful, lasting change in how National Airlines treats passengers of color. Jenkins nodded. We understand, and we're prepared to commit to substantial reforms. Specific reforms, Jasmine corrected. Vague promises won't suffice. She opened a presentation on her tablet and projected it onto the conference room screen. The title read, Equity Action Plan, National Airlines Transformation Initiative. My team has prepared a comprehensive proposal, Jasmine explained. It includes 5 key components. Personnel accountability, systemic reforms, transparency measures, community restitution, and ongoing verification. Morris and the board members exchanged nervous glances as Jasmine outlined each component in detail. Under personnel accountability, we're calling for the termination of all executives who approved or implemented the Customer Demographic Management program. Full severance for employees who reported discrimination and faced retaliation. And Gabrielle Johnson reinstated as Chief Diversity Officer reporting directly to the board. Jenkins began to object, but Jasmine continued. Under systemic reforms, we're proposing Phoenix Digital's AI audit of all customer service algorithms and decision trees to identify and eliminate bias. Mandatory anti-bias training for all employees. And a complete overhaul of how passenger complaints are tracked and addressed. As she moved through the presentation, the executive's expressions grew increasingly alarmed. Transparency measures would include quarterly public reporting of discrimination complaints and resolutions. An independent review board with representatives from civil rights organizations. And clear communication to all passengers about their rights. Morris interrupted. Ms. Washington, while we appreciate your thoroughness, some of these proposals would put us at a competitive disadvantage if we're the only airline implementing them. Being the industry leader in equity isn't a disadvantage, Jasmine countered. It's an opportunity to rebuild trust with millions of travelers who've experienced discrimination. But if you're concerned about competitive impact, I suggest you consider the cost of not implementing these changes. Kenneth displayed financial projections showing continued stock decline, passenger attrition, and potential lawsuit settlements without significant reform. Jenkins leaned forward. These are extensive demands. What is Phoenix Digital's role in this process? We're offering a partnership, Jasmine explained. Our AI system can identify patterns of bias in customer interactions that humans might miss or deny. We'd work with your team to implement technology that ensures equitable treatment while still optimizing genuine customer satisfaction. The board members conferred quietly before Jenkins responded with a counteroffer. We accept the need for significant change, she began. We'll implement bias training, review our algorithms, and improve complaint procedures. We'll reinstate Ms. Johnson in a senior advisory role. But public quarterly reporting creates unnecessary liability exposure, and an independent review board surrenders too much operational control. Jasmine had anticipated this response. Transparency isn't negotiable. Without external accountability, internal changes won't stick once the spotlight moves on. As for operational control, the review board would be advisory, not directive. The negotiation continued, point by point. National's legal team pushed back on admissions of systematic discrimination that might fuel lawsuits. Jasmine's team insisted on acknowledgement of past practices as the foundation for credible reform. After 2 hours, they reached tentative agreement on most points. One major sticking point remained: Jasmine's request for a board seat to ensure ongoing compliance. A board appointment is unprecedented under these circumstances, Jenkins argued. Shareholders elect our board members. Then call a special election, Jasmine replied. If you're serious about transformation, you need diverse perspectives at the highest level of governance. As they reached this impasse, Jasmine's phone rang. It was James Chen from Tech Global. Excuse me, she said, stepping away to take the call. James, I'm in the middle of negotiations. I know, Chen replied. That's why I'm calling. We've been monitoring the situation. We'd like to modify our acquisition offer. Jasmine tensed. In what way? We want to accelerate and expand it, Chen explained. Your handling of this crisis has demonstrated exactly the leadership we value. We're prepared to increase our offer by 15%, with additional performance incentives tied to your proposed airline reform system. The news was stunning. Rather than damaging the acquisition, the day's events had actually enhanced Phoenix Digital's value in Tech Global's eyes. Thank you, James, Jasmine responded. This means a great deal. One more thing, Chen added. We've cancelled all our corporate contracts with national airlines until they implement your full reform package. Our travel department is notifying them now. As Jasmine returned to the negotiating table, Morris was receiving the notification on his tablet. His face fell as he read it. Tech Global just cancelled their corporate account, he announced to the room. That's a $7 million annual contract. Jenkins looked stricken. How many more can we afford to lose? The power dynamic shifted perceptibly. What had been a negotiation was now closer to a rescue operation, with Jasmine holding the lifeline. Let me be clear, Jasmine said quietly. This was never about leveraging your crisis for our benefit. Phoenix Digital wants to be part of the solution. But that solution must be comprehensive, transparent, and permanent. She paused, letting the message sink in. The board seat isn't about control. It's about commitment. It signals to your customers, employees, and shareholders that National Airlines is serious about transformation. Morris and Jenkins exchanged looks. The calculation was obvious: the cost of refusal had just increased dramatically. We need to consult with the full board, Jenkins finally said. Can you give us 30 minutes? Jasmine nodded. As the National Airlines team filed out, Terrell turned to her with newfound respect. Tech Global increased their offer, he asked. 15%, plus incentives, Jasmine confirmed. They're watching how we handle this. It's validating our approach, not punishing it. You know, Terrell observed, when you were first removed from that seat, I thought fighting it would cost us everything. I've never been happier to be wrong. Jasmine smiled. Sometimes principles and profits align. Not often enough, but when they do, it's powerful. When the National Airlines team returned, their body language told the story before they spoke. They had capitulated. "We accept your terms," Jenkins announced. "All of them, including the board seat. Our shareholders deserve leadership that prevents this kind of crisis, not just responds to it." Morris added, "We'll issue a joint statement announcing the partnership and our commitment to industry-leading reforms." Jasmine extended her hand. "Then we have a deal. Phoenix Digital will help National Airlines become what it should have been all along, a company that serves all passengers with equal respect." As they shook hands, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a message from James Chin. "When can we expect you in San Francisco?" She smiled as she typed her reply, "Tomorrow. First class on Delta." The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The crisis that began with a denied first-class seat would end with Jasmine flying first class on a competitor's plane to close a now-enhanced acquisition deal. It was victory on every front. 6 months later, Jasmine Washington stood at the podium of the National Business Leadership Conference, surveying the packed auditorium. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, politicians, and media figures had gathered for her keynote address, "The Economics of Equality: How Inclusive Practices Drive Business Success." 6 months ago, Jasmine began, "I was removed from a first-class seat despite having a valid ticket. Today, I want to talk about the journey that followed, not just mine, but an entire industry's." The screens behind her displayed images from that pivotal day, the confrontation at the gate, the gathered crowd in the terminal, the subsequent media coverage, and finally, the signing of the historic agreement between Phoenix Digital and National Airlines. "What happened that day wasn't unique," Jasmine continued. "The only unique aspect was that someone with the platform to demand accountability refused to accept the status quo. But the transformation that followed, that has been truly extraordinary." She clicked to the next slide, showing National Airlines' new executive leadership team, significantly more diverse than 6 months earlier, with Gabrielle Johnson prominently featured as Chief Diversity and Compliance Officer. "National Airlines has undergone a fundamental reformation," Jasmine explained. Diana Sullivan resigned following an internal investigation. Bradley Wilson was terminated. But more importantly, the systems that enabled their actions have been dismantled and rebuilt. The statistics appeared on screen: discrimination complaints down 67%. Employee satisfaction up 42%. And perhaps most tellingly for the business-minded audience, after an initial stock plummet, National Airlines shares had recovered and even surpassed their previous value. "The market has rendered its verdict," Jasmine noted. "Ethical business is good business. Inclusive practices drive growth. Respect generates returns." She detailed the technical aspects of the transformation. Phoenix Digital's AI system had identified hidden patterns of bias in everything from seat assignments to customer service responses. The technology flagged potential discrimination in real time, allowing for intervention before incidents occurred. "What our data revealed was illuminating," Jasmine explained. "Bias wasn't just morally wrong, it was operationally inefficient. By implementing equitable practices, National Airlines has reduced complaints, improved staff retention, and enhanced customer loyalty." The next slide showed the ripple effects across the industry. 3 other major airlines had implemented similar reforms. The Department of Transportation had issued new guidelines for equitable treatment of passengers. A congressional committee was considering legislation to standardize reporting of discrimination complaints. "One stand created an industry-wide awakening," Jasmine observed. But the work continues. Transformation isn't an event, it's a process. She clicked to a slide showing herself at a National Airlines board meeting, actively engaged in governance discussions. "As the first Black woman on National's board, I bring perspectives that were previously absent from their highest level of decision-making. Representation matters not just symbolically, but functionally. Diverse leadership leads to better decisions." The audience nodded in agreement, many taking notes. Meanwhile, Jasmine continued, Phoenix Digital has undergone its own transformation. She detailed the successful acquisition by Tech Global, which had indeed increased their offer by 15%. The combined company was now valued at over $2 billion, with Jasmine serving as CEO of the autonomous Phoenix Digital division. Our anti-bias AI system has become our fastest-growing product, she revealed. Companies across sectors, not just airlines, but hotels, financial services, healthcare, and retail, are recognizing that algorithmic bias detection isn't just about avoiding PR disasters. It's about serving all customers equally well, which directly impacts the bottom line. Gabrielle Johnson had joined Phoenix Digital's leadership team while maintaining her role at National Airlines, bringing her unique expertise to both organizations. Her whistleblowing had transformed into industry leadership. Courage should be rewarded, not punished, Jasmine emphasized. When we protect those who speak truth to power, we create cultures where problems get solved instead of buried. As she moved toward her conclusion, Jasmine shared a personal story that brought the message home. Last week, I boarded a National Airlines flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles. The same route, the same airport where this journey began. As I approached the gate, I noticed the agent, a young black woman named Tasha Williams. Jasmine paused, emotion briefly overtaking her. Ms. Williams checked my first-class ticket and said something I'll never forget, "Thank you, Ms. Washington. Not just for flying with us today, but for ensuring I could be standing here." She had been hired as part of National's expanded diversity initiative, and she told me she had applied specifically because of what happened 6 months ago. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. That moment reminded me why this matters. It's not just about one seat or one flight. It's about who gets opportunities. Who feels welcome. Who can move through the world with dignity. Her final slide appeared, a message from a 12-year-old girl named Zoe Taylor. "Dear Ms. Washington, I saw what you did on that plane. I want to be a businesswoman like you someday. Now I know I don't have to be quiet when people treat me unfairly. Thank you for showing me what's possible." Jasmine's voice softened. This is why we must continue this work. For every Zoe who's watching. For every Tasha who deserves a chance. For a future where standing up for dignity isn't extraordinary, it's expected. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes. As the applause finally subsided, Jasmine offered her closing thoughts. Change begins with one person refusing to accept injustice. It gains power when others join that stand. And it becomes transformation when institutions recognize that equity isn't just right, it's smart business. Later that evening, as Jasmine prepared to board her flight home, she noticed something remarkable. The gate area reflected America itself, diverse in every dimension, with passengers of all backgrounds seated throughout the waiting area, checking tickets that would place them throughout the aircraft, including first class. The gate agent, an older white man, checked her boarding pass and smiled genuinely. "Enjoy your flight in first class, Ms. Washington." As she settled into her seat, Jasmine reflected on the journey. One moment of discrimination had launched a movement. One stand for dignity had created ripples of change that continued to spread. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Maya Turner had posted a new video, 6 months later, How Jasmine Washington Changed Air Travel. It already had 3 million views. Jasmine smiled as she put her phone away. The work wasn't finished. True transformation never really ended. But today, as the plane lifted into the clouds, she allowed herself to feel something too rare in the long struggle for equality. Hope. What do you think about Jasmine's journey? Has someone standing up for what's right ever inspired you to do the same? Comment below and share your story. If you believe in the power of one person to create change, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of courage and transformation. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they have the power to make a difference, no matter who they are or where they start. Thank you for watching, and remember, dignity is non-negotiable, and change begins with you. Jasmine Washington's experience teaches us that standing up against discrimination requires both courage and strategy. When faced with injustice, she didn't just react emotionally, she mobilized resources, gathered evidence, and built alliances. Her story demonstrates that meaningful change happens when individual dignity meets collective action. The transformation at National Airlines reveals a crucial truth: diversity isn't just morally right, it's good business. Companies that treat all customers equally perform better financially, retain more talent, and build stronger reputations. Discrimination carries hidden costs that eventually surface. Jasmine's initial choice to make one phone call rather than silently accept mistreatment shows how a single decision can spark widespread reform. Her actions created ripple effects across an entire industry, proving that individual courage can lead to systemic change. The story also highlights the power of visibility. By refusing to handle discrimination privately, Jasmine forced accountability in the public sphere where others could witness, support, and join her stand. This transparency prevented the airline from containing or minimizing the issue. Perhaps most importantly, Jasmine's journey demonstrates that expertise can transform experience. She turned her painful encounter into an opportunity by applying her company's AI technology to solve industry-wide problems. Her professional skills gave her the tools to translate personal outrage into practical solutions that benefited millions of others facing similar discrimination. What discrimination have you witnessed or experienced that needs to be challenged? We all have opportunities to stand for dignity in our daily lives, whether at work, school, or in public spaces. Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters and could inspire others to take their own stand against injustice. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help it reach others who need to hear this message of courage and transformation. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of people creating change in the face of discrimination. And don't forget to share this video with someone who might need encouragement to speak up when facing similar situations. Thank you for watching, and remember, change begins with one person refusing to accept the unacceptable. Your stand today could create ripples of justice that transform someone else's tomorrow.